Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you back, or for the first time, to We'll Bring the Popcorn, your favorite film and TV podcast.
On today's episode, we're going to be reviewing James Gunn's new film Superman, as well as the 6-episode miniseries of Marvel's Ironheart.
So I think we're just going to jump straight into it this week with the movie that's breaking the internet right now. We're not going to touch on the stuff they're doing, but it's just losing their minds over this film, and that, of course, is James Gunn's Superman, the brand new DCU kind of kickoff film. We had Creature Commandos that technically kicked it off, but now we've got our first feature film that's part of the DCU. And he did things a little differently with this. This is a Superman film that feels like a comic book brought to life. Like, touch on it briefly, Man of Steel gave us a grittier, darker, more serious Superman, and this is light and airy and funny and goofy and silly, but you got more layers with this Superman because David, I will say he was fantastic. Like, so we didn't get as much of his Clark, but his Superman was layered. You got him emotional. You got him struggling to figure out exactly kind of who he still wants to be, because this isn't an origin story. We start with Superman at the 3-year mark. He's been Superman. He's been out to the world for 3 years now, and he's lost his first battle, and he doesn't really know how to handle that, and it kicks off from there. But I had a lot of fun with this. This was a bright, colorful, fun comic book movie.
Yeah, this was unapologetic about the fact that it was a comic book movie, and that was kind of the tone that you feel throughout the film. Like, it's one that embraces the nuances of a comic book story, right? So obviously there's a very huge vocal portion of the internet that seems to take umbrage with anything comic book related, period. But you have, everybody calls them the Snyder Bros, who are like super hardcore. Well, if it's not a Zack Snyder version of this, I have no interest in seeing it. Just relax. Go touch some grass or something. You know what I mean? Talk to a girl. I don't know what to tell you, but like, it's so divisive unnecessarily for this, and I get it. There's an element of superhero fatigue in a lot of cinema right now going on. Like, obviously with Marvel being such an up and down, roller coaster that they've been on when they were the gold standard for a while, and DC just completely lost a lot of favor with a lot of people with the way they've handled a lot of these movies, and quite frankly, Zack Snyder's take on them were a big reason why they kind of fell off a little bit creatively too. So it's kind of a you're darned if you do, darned if you don't situation. But to get that out of the way, on its own merits, this film was fun. We had a good time with it. It has, like you said, it has layers, because you get this version of Superman who, like you said, this isn't an origin story. It's not him just finding out he's Superman and how to deal with that. You jump past all of that to where he's in action and everybody knows, and metahumans are very much a thing in this world that, people will have very strong opinions on. And it's kind of the nature of the DC comic universe, right? There's a portion of humans, obviously led by Lex Luthor, who in this film is played brilliantly by Nicholas Hoult, I may add. Like, he's a fantastic Lex Luthor, and they're trying to stop metahumans, but in Luthor's case, specifically Superman, because he feels like Superman is the pinnacle of what a metahuman is, and is on this vendetta to turn the world against metahumans, obviously for his own nefarious means and benefits. But that's kind of the through line throughout this whole film, is Luthor's vendetta against Superman in particular, not just all metahumans, but specifically Superman, which is a big thing in their comic book history, where, Superman and Lex Luthor, they're kind of like Batman and the Joker of, Superman's world, right? So it's like the yin and the yang of the two. And you get kind of this nuanced type of Superman who is still very young and figuring himself out, but doesn't know how to handle the setbacks that he has in this loss. Like, he kind of goes through this whole identity crisis where people are questioning him because he involves himself in this international conflict that, goes into this whole kind of political, like, is Superman really American, or is he, an alien who represents everybody but happens to have his origins in America? And I do think they do a fine line of walking that line while having the political commentary. And I want you to jump back in here in a minute, but the people that think that comic books can't be political have never read a comic in their life. Comic books are riddled with political stories throughout their entire run. So if you're one of those people where like I just need politics out of my comics, you've never read a comic book then.
Like, have you
ridiculous.
seen Captain America punching Hitler?
Right.
Have you ever read an X-Men comic and know exactly what's at the core of the X-Men?
Correct.
It's extremely political. Yeah, then Superman as well. Like his tagline about the American way was a political thing that was done during the war to try to bring people, like in real life, the World War II that was going on, to get people like, hey, be proud of being an American and support us through the war. That was added to Superman because of a war that was happening. So comics, Superman, all these characters have been political pretty much since the beginning. Right. Like, say, those who say, I hate the word. I don't even want to say the word calling Superman woke. Yeah. I have that word muted on every social media platform. Ridiculous. I hate that word because it makes zero sense on anything, and this isn't it. This is a true to the character. Like, there's some stuff it does do wrong that I didn't care for that we'll get to in a little bit, but it does a lot right. Like I said, David Cornsweet was fantastic as Superman. We did get those layers. I really love the sequence between him and Lois in the apartment where he agrees, because they make a joke that, Clark's always getting an interview with Superman. It's kind of getting a little fishy that you're talking to Superman so much. Like, okay, you can interview Superman. And that really showed off to us just how different this Superman was going to be, because he gets highly emotional. He gets very guarded. He goes kind of on an attack. Like, he's the superhero, the just great superhero, but he's emotional, and it's showing his human side, because he's a superpowered alien who was sent to Earth with, depending on how they change and work with that origin stuff, and that plays in here as well, exactly what the message is from his parents and why he was sent to Earth. But he was raised by humans, so he has both of those elements, and there's a lot of controversy about his parents. We've grown up in the country, we've been around, various, from the over the top to the, like, can't even tell that they grew up in the country. Right. I love the parents. It showed emotion. It showed parents who cared about their son. He's not Superman to them. He's Clark. Right. Our little boy. Yeah. And that's what I really loved about the parents. It was played really well. You have, Ma Kent just screaming at the phone on speakerphone, because let's face it, a lot of people over 60 and 70 trying to use technology, it goes like that most of the time. So I really enjoyed it. I kind of wanted more of them. We got just a little bit of it, which was fun. And as you said, Nicholas Hoult was fantastic as Lex. We got a more manic, kind of just genius Lex, because we've got the more, I don't even know what you would call Jesse Eisenberg's Lex. He was maniacal, but you didn't really get to see the genius side as much of that, even though he creates Doomsday and all that other stuff that it went into. This one shows just how Lex has a grip of people and technology, and how he has this control, because there's even scenes where he's knocking stuff over and people are scrambling to pick it up. Like, just showing, you may think it's just a funny throwaway, but it's to show that grip, that strength, that power that Lex has over people. And I would put Nicholas Holt's performance akin to, like, Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville, because he had one of the best Lex Luthors out there. And we got, instead of LexCorp, we have LuthorCorp, which I agree with James Gunn. It makes more sense that the last name is the name on the company instead of the first name, because not many people use their first names. If they're putting a business, it's the last name so that you know who they are. And it also opens up if we're going to have Lionel show up maybe in a sequel or something else. But I really enjoyed Nicholas Hoult. He was kind of really kind of crazy, over the top, but controlled, but also a few loose ends and a wire's loose, where he's like just kind of at the edge of cracking, and we get to see that crack happen as well. But I also want to give some props to Rachel Brosnahan, who was a fantastic Lois. Like, she was really so good. We didn't get as much of the Lois, like, kind of, we've got a little bit more of the reporter doing stories and stuff. We got plenty of stories and stuff with it. I would like to see a little bit more Lois that's not flying a spaceship and being, Lois Lane and stuff. But I still think there was a great dynamic, because we're dealing with the part with this movie that, Clark Lois knows who Clark is, knows she's Superman. They're dating, but they're not really sure about the relationship and stuff, and you've got that going on. I just love the dynamic between those two. Like, they were really solid playing off of each other, and they, like, David and Rachel were both really fantastic as our new Lois and Clark. Like, it was really fun watching them on screen.
Yeah, there was a lot of chemistry with them. I would agree with that. And you have this, this through line of Lex trying to stop at all ends to, not only stop Superman, but he's got his own agenda too about, carving out his own niche for himself in this land of Janapur. That's kind of a side story, but also ties directly into the main story kind of thing, where he's, creating this distraction of stopping Superman, which he very much wants to do, but also having his own business, his evil genius businessman, aspirations at the same time. It's like working hand in hand. And that goes to show some of the genius in him, because he's, creating this political rift using Superman to advance his own means while also taking down Superman. So he's not just hyper-focused and tunnel vision on taking Superman down. He's also doing it to benefit himself and his company as well, which I think was such a cool way of like presenting that, because, so many of these are just hyper-focused on stopping the one character. Our whole agenda is to stop you and take you down kind of thing. And it was pretty cool to see that kind of turn just a little bit. But yeah, man, there was so much fun in this. Like, you have these things that, they're the kaiju that they incorporate into this to kind of give that big monster feel to it, that is used as a vehicle to help introduce the Justice Gang, which is just
Nathan Fillion and his bowl cut.
Oh man, Nathan Fillion! I am so excited to see him in the Lantern series after seeing him in this, because he does such a good smug Guy Gardner, Green Lantern here, that I'm really excited to see what he does in the Lantern.
He already
series.
said in an interview he dropped more F-bombs
yes.
in the Lantern series, and he probably has his entire career.
Which has
so
me very excited.
Like, all right, that's going to be fun.
It's so funny because everybody was kind of poking fun at the haircut, but then I was like, you guys have never seen Guy Gardner in the comics.
That's a comic
Like, if you go back
Guy
and watch
Gardner
the old
haircut.
Green Lantern series, like the animated series with the Green Lanterns, it literally looks like Nathan Fillion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think they could have been more spot on with that casting, which is so funny. But
he was great, because he was cocky, he was arrogant, and Nathan Fillion does that really well, which I've loved watching his interviews too, because people are saying, like, they'll talk about how Guy Gardner's just a jerk and all this other stuff, and like, you do such a great what are you trying to say?
Yeah,
like, he knows, but he's
Tongue in
poking
cheek.
fun at him. Like, what are you trying to say about me?
He's so good, man. But in this instance, you get the introduction of the Justice Gang, which is a very funny name in its own. Just, poking fun at the fact that people are already talking about Justice League and all this other stuff. Like, these guys are the Justice Gang, and in this movie, it's Guy Gardner as a Green Lantern. You have Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, and then you have Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific, who, in my opinion, had probably the best coming out moment.
He steals a lot of scenes
in this entire film. Like, he is terrific, for lack of a better term. But I love this scene with them trying to go to the pocket dimension, and him protecting Lois with that bubble of protection, and just going off and fighting all of these people. It was just such a cool and well shot scene that I think James Gunn is very underrated at doing these type of over the top superhero action scenes, because it felt very, I hate to say it, but it's the one point of reference we have for him as far as comic book movies go. It felt very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque with this in its action, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And it just shows Mr. Terrific just going off and fighting with the help of his, terrific bots and all of that stuff. And he had a really fun moment. But I want to talk a little bit about, I know we're kind of all over the place with this because there's just so much going on. This film was really just a go.
That's a good thing, but a bad thing for this movie that we'll talk about. It is breakneck pace.
It was very fast paced with a lot going on, a lot to keep up with, which I kind of appreciate. But we'll get to that in a minute. But I do want to highlight and show some love to the Justice Gang's headquarters, which was our Cincinnati Union Terminal, which was the inspiration for the Justice League that you see in the comics. The iconic building that the Justice League looked like. It is directly based off the Cincinnati Union Terminal at the Museum Center, and they filmed the film here, and it's awesome to see that building.
I love
like,
that. I said, it's a Union
you
Terminal.
felt everybody in our theater just kind of like, it wasn't like a stand up and cheer moment, but you felt everybody just kind of.
It's like a proud moment
shit,
for
like,
everybody in this
set up
area. Like, hey, it's Union Terminal.
Because
Yes.
you have the beautiful like photo or like the shot from the garden up to the building that they kept and really didn't alter in it. And
Other
it was
than adding Hall of Justice.
well, I mean, you had to add the name obviously, but like the building was untouched as far as that goes.
I didn't think we were going to see inside because a lot of time it was used in the CW series as well, briefly.
Very briefly.
But you didn't go inside. When we went inside, it was something else. They actually filmed inside and used with kind of minimal changes the inside of Union Terminal as well, which was great to see. Like, because I was expecting, we'll get an exterior shot and then it'll look completely different. It'll be like this big, cold kind of sci-fi corporate look. No, it was
literally
Union
how
Terminal
that building
inside.
looks like on the inside.
We have that gigantic mural, the bright yellows. It's a big Art Deco building. It's a beautiful building. And I'm glad it got shown off really well in the movie.
All of that is very much in this film. And if you see the film and if you're curious about it, please come to Cincinnati. Go to the Union Terminal, the Museum Center. It's awesome. It's a beautiful building. It's a really cool museum to go through. And
you got the OmniMax, so you've got big dome that you can watch educational films and stuff on, which we tried to get a Twister screening on there and it didn't happen. We didn't get invited to the Superman screening there. We won't hold it against him because we still love the place. He's going to hold it against him. So
hold a grudge forever.
But yeah, it would have been nice to be invited to that. But I'm curious how they did the screening there as well, because I don't know if they did the OmniMax or if they just set up like a portable screen or something and did something there. But cool. I love seeing that. Like it has been, like you said, through the comics when it was introduced, its Art Deco style it was clearly referenced. It was said it was referenced, that it was going to be it, and they stuck to like showing it and having it be that. So hopefully we get a Superman sequel or something, we can get a little bit more. Even we get a Justice League movie, hopefully we see it again in there. So it's just kind of that proud moment for everyone in the area. Like, hey, I've been there with my kids. I've been there as a kid. It's a great museum and a great place. It's beautifully designed, but it's just awesome to see, like, all right, yeah, it's officially the Hall of Justice in the DCU now.
Getting some cinematic love, which hopefully with future projects they utilize that space again, come back through and film, because it wasn't the only place in the city where they did film for this. They did film some stuff downtown that they did use. I was trying to keep an eye out for some of the downtown fighting stuff to see if I kind of recognized the layout of a street or something, but couldn't really pick it up too much. But I know they did film down by like the Red Stadium and down in that area. I kind of want to go back again and watch it and see if I could pick up on some of the.
It's kind of a mashup because they did a lot of it in Cleveland,
also,
and they mashed up with Cincinnati and a few other places as well. So Metropolis is a big mashup of several different cities, because we did kind of get the Cincinnati skyline a little bit, but we also got the Cleveland skyline. Like it's a pretty big mashup of a few cities.
And of course, they used the Guardians ballpark for the stadium fight.
Great American Ballpark.
Bad move, James Gunn. No, I'm just kidding. It is, I think, aesthetically a nice.
You could have had Superman pick up one of the water wheels at the Great American Bar, or smokestack from Great American Ballpark, and beat the engineer with it. That would have been perfect.
Yeah, it would have been great timing for it. But
just call us for the Superman 2. Like, we got
ideas. We got ideas for days. But yeah, getting back to the film, like we're going through all of this stuff. Like I said, we talked about characters that we love, and we've gotten this far into the review, and we haven't talked about what a lot of people are really raving about the film coming out of it. And that's Crypto, who is, the dog that is following Superman around and is just chaos personified.
Absolute chaos.
In this film. It's like your agent of chaos is Crypto, who has some awesome moments where they just kind of steal the show in this film. And it's just so fun because, coming out of it, everybody's like, oh, he's the goodest boy now. Like, he's the best boy. And I love seeing all the different popcorn buckets where there's one with him holding up an actual, like a square canister for popcorn, and then you've got a literal dog bowl as like a popcorn bucket too. I love seeing some of the integration.
I asked my kids, "Do you want to eat out of
the dog bowl?"
Out of the dog bowl? No.
That was funny. I loved seeing your daughter's reaction to this film too, because it was a lot of fun. And Crypto was a super big highlight in it. And we get a couple fun cameos too. Like we get I don't want to spoil that for people who haven't gone and seen it, but There's a couple other DC cameos that you get in this film very briefly, but
and Marvel cameos.
They leave a little bit of a mark, and it's fun to see where they're going to be involved in it going forward. But it was kind of a, hey, we're tying into this, but we're introducing this character that's going to be heavily featured in a film next year. If you know anything about what's coming up for DC, that's kind of your wink and a nod for what's coming up. But yeah, man, it was a ton of fun. Like it was a fun story about like Superman kind of just learning, like he's still learning who he is as a hero, and that's a very big, a very big message coming out of this film is like him learning how to be a hero, him leaning into his humanity that drives a lot of the decisions that he makes. And it's not just on this all-powerful alien that knows better than everybody. It's from his real shared, like his real experience, human experiences, on top of a message of inspiration that he gets from his parents that, they play with in an interesting way in this movie too. But it's his purpose on the planet. And it's a really cool, like, way of showing that heart to Superman that I think they do a really good job of capturing here.
Yeah, and while we've shown a lot of praise and stuff for the movie, I think we do need to talk about a few items that didn't work for us. So for me, like, we briefly touched on it here. It is a breakneck pace. Like, I enjoyed it. It didn't really bother me that much, but it didn't leave a whole lot of time to breathe. It's just going from one piece to another, to another, to another. And even though I enjoyed it, it's very comic booky. So if you're not prepared for that, it could throw you off a little, because you have a kaiju that starts off as a baby and goes, becomes really huge and stuff, which is very different than we haven't really. I mean, we've had Doomsday and other type of creatures show up, but we really haven't had like a kaiju that he has to fight. And then it does feel like we maybe have one too many characters in this movie, because you do have a ton, because you have Guy Gardner, you have Hawkgirl, you have Mr. Terrific, you get Lex, you get Cat Grant, you get Lois, you get Jimmy, you get Perry, you get a few other people in like the bullpen of the newspaper that get tossed. There's a lot of characters that are tossed in this movie. Like, I didn't hate it, but it does feel like, all right, we've got a lot jam-packed in here. Like, we've got 10, 15 different characters that you're kind of trying to get names of and follow and have, and then you add in Metamorpho, and you add in Crypto, and then you have just the girlfriend of Lex. Like, you've got a lot of different characters to try to flesh out a little bit and, like, just follow around a little bit, see how Lex going, because Jimmy's got his side stories with women and all this other stuff, and you have Lois and Clark's story, and they have, Superman is Clark and Superman is Superman, and you get everything with the Justice Gang and all that. It's like, it can be a little overwhelming when you have that breakneck pace with that many characters.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that, but I want to kind of counter it a little bit, and this is where it's a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation, right? Well, how often do you hear people talk about, like, logic in, like, having some kind of natural logic in a non-natural story, right? So obviously these superheroes with superpowers, not a real thing, right? It's a fantastical element of it. But how often do you hear, well, you have this issue that Superman's dealing with in Metropolis. Why is nobody helping him? Why is nobody coming through if you know these characters exist and why they're not involved? So it's one of those, like, I can appreciate the inclusion of these characters because they do exist. They are around in this area. They are in this city, and they can help. So I think they do a fine job of keeping those characters around and giving you just a little bit of a teaser into who they are and what they're about, whilst still keeping the focus on Superman. But you have these people around it, and that kind of makes sense for the story that they're telling, right? It's like, you need to know that these characters exist, and it's not just Superman on an island by himself in this major metropolitan city, right?
Especially when you're jumping 3 years into him being Superman. By now, he's had to have ran into other people.
And they make it clear that the world knows that metahumans exist and that Superman's not the only one. So they kind of set you up for that expectation at the beginning of the film that it's like, hey, the world knows about metahumans now. Obviously, that means Superman's not the only one. So they set that expectation up for you literally at the beginning of the film, and they say the world knows about these people are around. So it makes sense for these people to be involved. Because so often you see it, and Marvel's terrible about this in some ways, where it's just like, oh, this is a Captain America story. Well, Captain's got one or two people that can help him. where you hear it all the time coming out of these stories. Well, where's X, Y, and Z that he knows he can lean on if this was that real of a threat in a real situation? It's like, oh, they're just screwing off doing something else. Well, that's not really an acceptable answer here when you're talking about the needs of a superhero. So I get where you're coming from there. Like, it does feel like it's a lot, but I think they did a fine job of walking the line of having these people around, knowing they're existing, and giving you just a little bit of a taste of these people, because, like you said, this isn't an origin story of him just meeting these people and you're slowly introducing to him. He's been at it for a couple years, and these people are all established in his life. So having them around and just giving you a little bit of insight into all of them, I think, is the smartest way to write it and the way to do it. So I kind of see what you're saying, but I think the way they handle it makes a ton of sense given the story that they were telling.
It wasn't something I necessarily had a problem with. It's one I can see a
Other
general
people,
audience.
sure.
Like, if you're not a comic book fan, this could be overwhelming at times to you because of how many characters you have. Trying to look at that other perspective of those who may not know Superman that well, may not be a huge comic book, but they want to go see something big, action-packed. It can be a little overwhelming with just how many. But like I said, it makes sense. Guy Gardner's Superman going back and forth and going at each other where he's not afraid. And, there's some people picking on kind of how much weaker Superman is in this, but it adds that humanity to him. Like, he's not fully indestructible. We know all the different ways that kryptonite and the different colors affect him, and we see it used in here, but he has some knockdown, drag-out fights where he's going against other beings that are just as powerful as he is. So he's going to be a little hurt and damaged and stuff. So I didn't have a problem with that, but that's another one I look at that some people may see. We're seeing a weaker Superman. He's still strong. We get to see some great battles with him and you get to see him throw down and fight, but it is a little bit weaker Superman, but that wasn't a problem for me. Like, this is, again, my brain going to what the internet is complaining about. Sure. That wasn't a complaint to me, because a big point of this Superman and seeing this Superman was to see his humanity more than his alien side, his indestructibleness. It was showing that he's still, like, he grew up here. He grew up as a human. He has struggles. He's relatable because he feels like he's someone that you can feel sympathy for, that you're not just, like, seeing him as this indestructible god. He's a human being that just happens to be superpowered.
Right.
Human being. Like,
yeah, you know what I mean. Has human traits. Like, I do think they do a good job of walking that line in this movie. And like you said, I appreciate that he's not this indestructible fighting force, because he never really was in the comics either. Like, he's always going up against an adversary that can push him to his limits. And I think he's still just new enough at being Superman, being 3 years in, to still kind of learning what his limits are. Like, you literally get people with powers on par of Superman because of, Lex Luthor having studied Superman as long as he has, and literally knowing, like, half the film is about him knowing how to counter-fight Superman because he studied him so well.
1A.
Right. He has, like, all these programmed built-in counter-strikes for everything that Superman can do, and that just shows some of the genius of Luthor in this. Like, he's so obsessed with him, he knows his fighting style in and out and knows the perfect way to counterbalance that. Like, that's what you want from a villain. Like, you want them to be able to match it, because it's boring if it's just, oh, this guy's coming to fight and Superman can take him out in one punch and we're done and that's it. Like, if you want to throw in that logic, you could argue that the Flash is probably one of the most OP superheroes of all time, just because he's so quick, and the literal science behind it goes he would pulverize somebody in 2 seconds.
I think that's why we really haven't had a Superman video game in such a long time, because it's a hard character to figure out. Like, all right, he is impenetrable to everything. He's stronger than everything. He's faster than everything. He flies. He's got heat vision. He's got his breath. He's got his hearing, which we didn't really get the hearing in here. It didn't bother me that he wasn't trying to super listen to everything. We got his breath. We got his eyes. We've got his strength and his flying. But I said with the video game, like, it's, how do you take somebody who was so incredibly overpowered and put it in a way that it feels like, okay, when they get knocked down, or how could there be a real threat to a guy who could lift a planet and stuff like that? And so I think James Gunn did a good job with that in this film, of showing, Yeah, he's still kind of learning. His power is based on the sun, so if he doesn't have the sun, he's a bit weaker. He's still new, but he's not brand new, so he's still making mistakes, and that's what this film is about. Like he's in 3 years in, this is the first time he's ever lost a fight. So you're seeing the broken Superman. You're seeing the Superman that's struggling because I've never lost before. I've never had someone who's been able to match me before. How do I deal with that emotionally, physically, everything else? And I think from the complaints that we've seen online, I don't think it's a problem with this movie. I think it actually helps make Superman feel much more like a real character, a real person than a god. See, I think I'm good with everything there. That it can be a bit silly. Like
Sure.
if you're not in there to just take in a full comic book movie, and we say this because comic books can be serious.
Sure.
They can be goofy and silly. Pretty much everything that happened in this movie has happened in a Superman comic in a way, like the humor, the silliness of that. But I can see it putting a few people off. Like Crypto can be a bit over the top at times
Very.
with how they're doing. Some of the jokes and humor can be very silly and over the top with it. There's one sequence where he punches somebody and the teeth bounce off of. He knocks out teeth and it bounces off of the camera. That can be a bit silly. That's kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit on there. But I had fun with the silliness. Like this is not a dark, brooding Snyderverse film. This is a bright, colorful comic book movie that's setting a new direction. You can't sit here and want something after we had that universe try with 6 different films between. Well, I mean, you had 2 Wonder Woman, 2 Aquaman, you had Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League, The Flash. So you had about 8 films in that universe that was all very dark, brooding, and serious. We're going in a different direction that is more akin to the comics of the bright and colorful. It still has some seriousness to it.
Sure.
But it does stay in the direction of the silliness, which I was fine with, but I can see some people feeling it's a little too silly at times. But I had fun. Like it's something that if you can go in without your preconceived notions on what you want it to be and let it be what it is, you can have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, we started at the very beginning of this saying, like, it's a comic book movie that's unapologetically a comic book type movie. Like, all of the praise that I've seen about this film coming out of it echoes that exact same sentiment. Like, it feels like it's comic book, coded. Like, it feels like it's something that I would read on a page and you're putting it in motion in real life. And that's where you see the people that are really loving comics and fans of comic books that are passionate about the genre are really loving this. And the people that don't like it are not liking it for different reasons. Either you were a super hardcore fan of the Snyder stuff, and I didn't hate the Snyderverse stuff as much as a lot of people did.
No, I enjoyed it.
I wasn't as hardcore as into it as other people were as well, but this has never once tried to compare itself to that. And you see it coming through that it's like a brighter take on it, a more optimistic look at a superhero film. And the one thing that I really appreciate about what James Gunn is trying to do so far, because there was a lot of things hinging on this being very successful, and I have not had a chance or had the desire to look at the box office trends and
domestically
like
right now. It's looking about 125 to 150 million domestically.
Fantastic.
It's looking to 250 to maybe even up to possibly 300, depending on how it goes. Like word of mouth has been so positive that they said ticket sales have increased globally. So they haven't really, at the time of our recording here, they haven't released everything. But right now they're projected. It's made over 100 million domestically already. So
Sure.
it's done fairly well.
I love that, and I love to see that. And it's and I don't know where I was going with that, but like it's one of those things like give it a chance. Just give it a chance, because whatever you think it's going to be or whatever you think you saw from the trailers, it's so much better than what the trailers gave us, in my opinion. Like it's a much, much better film in that sense. Like it has heart, it has humor, it has a good story across. Like people that go into it with these preconceived notions, like, oh, it's going to be political and I don't want that, and that's fine. Like you don't have to, but stop watching comic book movies if you don't want political messages in your comic book movies, because it's a literally all about...
What isn't political anymore,
political,
even though I hate politics?
Yeah, everything's...
What isn't political anymore?
Everything's politicized at this point, and it's so much fun. But the one thing I'm appreciating that James Gunn is talking about tonally from his stories is he's leaving... Like, he really wanted to do all hands on the Superman film, but you're going to see in future projects, like, they're going to be tonally different from each other, and it's not going to be one note across all of the films, which, for lack of a better term, the Snyder films were, like you said, in that dark, brooding, a little bit of humor mixed in here and there, just a splash of it to not be so serious that it's almost emo to a point, but, like, it's going to be tonally different in every one of them. And he's come out and said that. He's like, hey, we wanted this Superman film to be positive and optimistic and bright and colorful. They're coming right back with a Clayface film that we've talked about before that's going to be a body horror, dark tonal film.
Rated R. He's
letting these people that are creating these films in this universe tell the style of stories that they want to tell, because there are other DC comic properties that do skew on the darker side and the more grittier, darker, much more serious tones, and they're going to have opportunities for those stories too, and they can all intertwine and work together and make ways. And I'm not going to lie, man, based on what we've gotten from Superman, I think the future is a little bit brighter for DC at this point based on what we have kicking off for it here, because like you said, Superman is supposed to be the cheesy cookie cutter, like Captain America-esque equivalent in the DC universe, obviously significantly stronger than Cap was, but having that same heart where they have that strong moral, base where they're still going to mess up and make mistakes, but they learn and they grow. And, that's kind of at the heart of what this is. And, you're going to have your time for your darker and grittier stories. Those are coming. Like, you're going to get a variety.
Eventually, we'll get the Batman Part 2.
Sure. In 2040, when, Robert Pattinson can actually be Batman Beyond, it might just be Batman 2, Batman Beyond at that point, where he's old man Bruce Wayne, but that's neither here nor there, but that's not really a James Gunn hold up at that point. But I'm excited for the future of DC, and I was hoping that would be the case when I came out of this, because you and I were both very... for lack of a better, apprehensive going into this film. We're like, man, I really want this to do well, because I really think that if this is successful, it's going to push Marvel to be... I think it'll push Marvel to start upping their game a little bit too.
Yeah, if DC does well, that helps Marvel, because they have to look at it and realize, okay, we got to do better. We got to change things up. We have to match what they're throwing out there. It's good for them to both be good at the same time.
Healthy competition is what we all want and what we all deserve as fans of comics. You don't have to be tribalistic from one to the other. That's very much a thing in comic books, where you're either heavy. I love both, because I love the genre and I love, the intricacies and the storytelling. So they have very strong similarities, but also very strong differences too. And I like it, and I can appreciate them both for what they are. But yeah, man, give it, like, whatever you think you've heard or read about this movie, go form your own opinion. We can't stress that enough. We talk about it all the time here, where we don't go and really look at reviews before going and seeing a film. One, we try to see films as early as we possibly can, just because we don't want to be flooded with spoilers and reviews and all this other negative stigma around a film that can hinder our experience going to see it. But we still want to go form our own opinions. We see buzz about films that are like, oh, I'm not hearing the best things about this. And then we go and we're like, yeah, it was justified. Or, man, what are these people talking about? Like, we go and form our own opinions, and that's what we do here. Yeah, a lot of times we do tend to skew more towards the positive side, and TikTok loves telling us about that. Shout out to the people that watch our TikTok videos. But,
hi, trolls.
Yeah, love you too. But we tend to find that we get more entertainment out of our films by not going with these preconceived notions, like going in with a clear mind and an open mind, and kind of absorbing the tales of what they were. Like we said, there were some things that didn't work very well with Superman, but there were a lot that did. And like, obviously we've been praising the film. I'm not going to give it a 10. We'll get to our ranking here in a second, but I'm not going to give it a 10, but I'm not going to give it a 5. Like, some people are like, oh, this movie was trash. Like, did you go see it? Like,
It's the worst Superman movie ever made. No, if you're being objective, no, it's not.
No, Superman 3, for the love of God.
3 and 4.
3,
like,
4
how can you put anything
too.
below 3 and Superman 3 and 4?
It ain't that. Like, don't worry about that. But like, we try to talk about the things that we appreciate about a film coming out of it, and we'll knock it if there's things we didn't like about it. But I'm struggling to find a ton of things that I really disliked about the film, honestly, because it's subjectively, to me, really solid.
Yeah, and they said, we've always pushed to make up your own mind with stuff. If you had interest to see it, don't let one negative review or the toxicity online keep you from seeing something, because you could miss out on something that you could really have a lot of fun with. There's some people who will hate things no matter what because of their political views or their views on other stuff that they're just going to hate. Yeah. If you had any interest, go check it out. You have potential to have a lot of fun with it. No one is ever going to like everything 100%. Nothing in this world is 100% loved, liked, or praised. It's just never going to happen.
Right.
Doesn't matter what it is. There's nothing that's 100%. Go have fun with it. It's a fun superhero movie. Like I said, I could sit here and nitpick through some other things, like the pocket dimension was a little corny.
Sure, of course it was.
And very underwhelming, because you kind of had Lex had the upper hand at one point and did a very typical villain stuff like, oh, I want to finish you off, but I'm just going to leave you here for a little bit and I'm going to go off. Like, you had very easy ways that Lex could have been the victor in this movie, but it's the very typical, well, I'm this too proud of a villain to have it go out this way and stuff. I got to let my plans fully go through before I go through with my final plan and stuff. Like, there's some corniness with the story in that way, with the whole political stuff like that. Like, some stuff was just all right, but the story was okay. The core part of David as Superman, as Nick as Lex, Rachel as Lois, that works so well that you had just so much fun with them being the characters, that the few shortcomings of the story and how they handled some things didn't really matter because I was having so much fun with it.
Yeah, and at that point, it's just it all comes down to preference, like you said. Like there's things we could take the time to really dive in and nitpick about the film that maybe could have been tweaked a little bit here and there. But at the end of the day, for us, it's not something that really takes away from our total enjoyment of the film. And with the message that it tells, and the overall presentation of these characters in this story was done in such a wonderful way that I think far significantly outweighs any nitpicking we can do about it. It's going to keep us from giving it a perfect score, obviously, and it'll probably knock it down just a little bit for us, but I think it's much better and much more positive for us to talk about the things that did work about the movie for us. We can be realistic about some of the things that could have been tweaked here or there, done a little bit better, but I don't think that's as productive, and we like to talk about positive things as opposed to just leaning into so much negativity, which is like 99.9% of the internet anyway. We don't like to do that. If a film is so bad that the negatives far outweigh the positives, we talk about that too. Go see how much we've skewered a film like Madam Web, how much we just couldn't stand that film.
I can't even remember the name anymore, the Mark Wahlberg flight film that I've tried to block from my memory.
Completely forgot it existed.
Go watch that review and see what we thought of it. We laid into it. Like, we're not here shilling or hyping up. Like, we're being realistic as comic book fans of this genre, of action, everything else. Like, it had far more positives than it did negatives.
Yeah, and that's going to go into our rankings that we're getting ready to jump into when we finally rate this film like we always do every week. And I think that, like we said, those positives are going to so outweigh the negatives here that it's going to lean into us giving it a positive score. So in the end, Superman, the new James Gunn film, it is a really fun take on a comic book film that's unapologetically a comic book film, right? It's a fun, fast, very fast-paced film about, Superman, not an origin story, but it's him still learning and making mistakes and finding out who he is and having his humanity help propel him forward to become the best version of himself. And I think that's the heart and the strong point of the story. There's phenomenal performances throughout this. The writing overall was really, really solid, really above average. I'm going to give Superman an 8.5. Like, it holds up that well for me. There are things that I can nitpick about that'll take it down a little bit for me. Like you said, it could have taken a little bit of a breath here and there. Some of the use of, like, the pocket dimension and other things like that felt a little forced and a little stifled. Like, it didn't work the best for me. And some of the whole scenes in the pocket dimension, probably not the best in the film, but it takes it down a little bit for me. But at the heart of it, man, you get Superman in his splendor as, the the do-gooder superhero kind of Captain America equivalent of the DC universe here, where, he's the beacon of hope and positivity and things that worked so well in this film. I'm giving it an 8.5 for that reason. Like you said, it's not a perfect movie, but it is so much fun that the positives of this movie far outweigh any little nitpicks I could have for it.
Yeah, Superman is a bright, bold, colorful, fun comic book movie that is a comic book movie. It's not trying to fully ground him in reality. It's taking the absurdness and the craziness and the overtopness that is most comic book stories and going with it. And it works really well. David is fantastic as Superman. We didn't get as much of his Clark as I would like to see. I would like to see a little bit more of his Clark, because you did kind of get the bumbling bit of Clark, and we get a little more lore with how people don't recognize him and everything else too. Rachel was fantastic as Lois. Nicholas Hoult was a great Lex. I want to see more of him. It was a fun movie. It does have some problems. Like I said, you mentioned breakneck pace, maybe a little too many characters thrown in there at times. Could be you just didn't allow all of them to get their moment. It's like Hawk Girl. I think she got kind of the shorter end of the straw on this. She didn't get as much to do in this film, and you had some others like Cat Grant and others that was just kind of there to say the characters there. But yeah, it's a big, bold, fun comic book movie that I'm giving an 8.5 as well. Like it had a few issues with the story, had a few issues with its pacing, could have been a little longer to allow it to breathe. But overall, I had such a great time watching Superman on the big screen, and this is probably one of the best comic book movies we've had in years.
I would agree with that. Like it's something that a big thing for me in my ranking is rewatchability. Do I want to go back and dive into it? And the answer for this is 100% yes. Like I want to go back and watch it again now that I've seen the film. I want to go back and look at some more of the layers and the things that I can nitpick. And that's a good thing for me for a film is like I want to go back and see what I may have missed, see if I was so hyper focused on the story and how everything was working to kind of pick up on some of the subtle nuances that people like to throw into their films and look for some of those Easter eggs that I'm not necessarily looking for in my first watch of it and paying as deep enough attention to look for, oh, this is this obscure reference to a comic book here. I can do that on my second
And there's a lot of voice cameos in here that
100%.
You may not have recognized, because there's so many people from Marvel and DC that did voices or appearances in here that you may not, you probably gloss over on the first watch.
Sure, and that's the point of me going back and watching it a second time is to kind of pick up on some of those subtleties that I didn't see because I am so hyper focused on the story that it's trying to tell, and making mental notes while we're watching it and things like that, because we're going to talk about it here. But man, it's just, you could feel the energy of positivity coming out of the theater when people were done watching it that you don't always get coming out of a film, because sometimes you go, I don't really know how I felt about it yet. I need to go take it. You just felt an overwhelming sense of positivity.
Until our entire theater had a lot of fun.
Yeah, like it just had a great time. The laughs made people laugh. Everybody loves Crypto coming out of it. Like, maybe not everybody, but most people have a generally favorable, positive look on Crypto. Crypto is very chaotic.
We had a few kid reactions too, because there's just a couple things that happened in Crypto and other things you hear a kid like, oh no, screaming out in the theater. Like they even, and that's what's important too. Like those of us who've been with Superman for a while, of course, the character has been around since the 1930s, 1940s and stuff. That, and of course, the first Superman movies were in the 70s. That you can have various opinions on it, but you got to realize too that not only is this supposed to be for the long-term fans, this is to try to get new fans as well, to get the youth that Man of Steel and other stuff may have been a little too grown up for that generation. This is a Superman that's made for everybody to be able to watch and enjoy. There's some language, there's some violence and everything else, but it's made to, because it's got to try to capture the youth. It's got to try to capture the 8, 9, 10-year-olds all the way up through the 50, 60, 70-year-olds who've been with it from almost the beginning. Like it's there's some stuff that's for us and there's some stuff for the kids as well. So you've got to look at it that way. But yeah, I left the theater thinking, all right, do I go back and am I coming back to the theaters to watch this? Because like, when can I find time to get back to theaters? Because I kind of want to come see it in theaters again because I had that much enjoyment out of it.
I love that too. And I had the same thoughts for myself. I'm like, man, if I could carve out time at like a Saturday morning or, something like that to go just check it out again and just go and enjoy it and have fun with it. But I would be remiss if I didn't, before we move on to our next review, one of my favorite scenes in this is the Guy Gardner scene where he goes to the front lines of the battle and he goes to help save the kid, and his use of the lantern there, where he's taking off all of these guys, and the object that he manifests with his lantern is just a big middle finger to kind of like just get going on that. It was just so funny and so on brand for what we know we're going to get from Guy Gardner moving forward. It was just so, I don't know why that made me laugh the entire time. I'm just like, because you think of like sometimes your brain when you're like, oh, the power of a ring means you can manifest literally whatever you could think of, and I'm like, that's pretty on brand for that character. But I was that feels like something I would do as a petty person, to just kind of like, all right, here's something to do it, just like throw up the gesture. And
there's only one scene of Guys that kind of overwrote that scene for me, and it was one that it was a background. You have Lois and Clark kind of having a moment in the background. You've got this big creature being fought by the Justice Gang, because it's at that point everyone's like, well, we're not really trusting a Superman. Is he a criminal? Is he against us? And so the Justice Gang is taken on. You've got Guy Gardner, who just forms a giant baseball bat, and you just see a big green baseball bat beating an alien creature over. Like, I was laughing so much at it's that absurdity. It's something like you don't have to take that seriously. It can be silly and quirky and funny. Even if some of the silliness doesn't work all the time, it can be a lot of fun. Like, that silliness, like Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner stole a lot of scenes, and then it was well worth it, because they did add, Mr. Terrific added a little humor just of how stoic and how straight-laced he is with everything, and very serious how he is in his response. Like, he takes offense if you say something like this, especially like when they're getting his spaceship and the door is opening so very slowly, and that's a actual garage door from the museum center stuff. But he's just takes it so serious when Lois says something off-putting. Like, I'm sorry. Like, but yeah, like, there were such fun, memorable moments like that from Superman, but also from the cast. Like, Guy Gardner got to have, because we really haven't got past Ryan Reynolds, the Green Lantern, out there. Like, the Snyderverse was supposed to have one. We got a little bit in the Snyder cut, but we didn't. We really haven't had a Green Lantern done well in live action. We had Ryan Reynolds' movie that was very panned by everybody, including him himself.
Sure.
And so now we've got, it's not Hal Jordan, it's Guy Gardner, but we got a fun Green Lantern that shows all the ridiculous ways that he can use his ring, because he's blocking out windows, and he's forming middle fingers and baseball bats, and he's putting a, like, mask over top of the kaiju to keep it from trying to bite Mr. Terrific and stuff. Like, it's
a muzzle.
That's muzzle. That's the my brain was like, what's that called? Okay, it's a muzzle. My brain just stopped braining for a little bit, which happens often. It stops braining.
It's fine. But I want to say something controversial here. And I know the internet's going to have a field day with this, and you can make this a clip.
Just going to make a clip,
put it out there, and I want to see what kind of comments you get. Guess what, guys? You're allowed to have a good time at the movies. I know that's crazy. You don't have to hate watch things. It's crazy. You can actually go in and have fun and have a good time. I know that's a controversial take, but guess what you're going to do if you watch this? You're going to probably have a good time if you have any type of sense of humor.
Stuff.
Yeah, and I can't stand that. I can't stand the whole, well, it has to be this way or I'm not going to like it. Like,
it's not your character.
Get out of that, man. You don't own it. You don't own the rights to it. You're not doing what you want with it. Like, it's, if you think you could do better, write your own. You know what I mean? Try to get it sold and get it made. And if you make $1 billion off it,
good job.
Hats off to you. But you're allowed to go have a good time. That's what this is. This film is a good time. Stop taking everything so freaking serious. Like, it's not that serious, guys. Like, it's about a guy wearing red underwear on a blue suit.
But if we do that in public, we get arrested.
Right.
It's okay if it's Superman.
It's a guy flying around shooting lasers out of his eyes and punching things really hard. Like, it's not that serious, guys. Like, calm down. Like, it can mean a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's not that serious. Like,
I can enjoy dark comic book movies and stuff as well. Like, still, a lot of people don't know Road to Perdition was a comic movie, and it's a fantastic, dark comic book movie that's grounded in reality, and it's so well done. Even like 300th graphic novel, that's it's for the most part it's not realistic, but it's grounded and it's in its reality and stuff, like taken very serious, dark, gritty, rated R, bloody and stuff. There's places for those to happen. The Snyderverse had its time, It's time for something new, and you don't have to hold on to it. You can still go back and watch
those movies
all
aren't
of
going anywhere.
we will both agree Henry Cavill got a short end of the
100%.
stick with it. Like, he got one Superman movie. His next one was a Batman and Superman movie that was neither a Batman movie or a Superman movie. And then he got the Justice League team up before everyone was really introduced. Like, he got the short end of the stick. 100%. He physically was one of the biggest, powerful looking Superman we've ever had. But it's not James Gunn's fault that Superman didn't get his time.
Yeah. He
could have brought Henry back, but then if he brought him back in this bright, colorful, then they would be complaining like, well, why'd you change the Superman? Like, there was no winning about being able to keep Henry Cavill's Superman going anymore. Like, It was, unfortunately, met its end. Of course, he showed up at the end of Black Adam and everyone's excited, and I love seeing him as Superman, but his time had run out. Just like, as much as I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and stuff, he got his 3 films. It moved on to Andrew. I loved Andrew in it, but his films weren't very good.
Sure.
And then Tom Holland has been great as Spider-Man, and we got some nostalgia and got to bring some of those back and stuff. But they each brought something different and their own to it, and that can be exactly what this is. This is, David's the 12th Superman. All of them were different.
Yeah, every single one.
Every single one of them been different. Enjoy it. You don't have to gatekeep it. You don't have to say you hate it just because it's not what you were expecting. Superman's story has been told in so many different ways, from light to dark and everything in between. This is a Superman comic book movie that feels like Superman ripped from the pages and brought onto the big screen.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the positive feedback that we're seeing, and I'm super excited to see how it does, and hopefully it kicks off big things for DC, because, man, they could use a turnaround and a comeback. That's something they could use really heavily, and I hope people give this film a chance. I really do, because, like you said, we had a ton of fun with it. It's a really solid comic book movie, man. I can't put it any simpler than that. Like, if you're a fan of comics and the tone of comics, if you're a fan of Superman and you don't like this film, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the character of Superman, and you read
Superman.
The comics, like, this is almost a quintessential type of Superman that has been portrayed for decades now, and it's one of the more authentic versions of Superman that we've seen, and I'm super excited to see where he goes next and what they do moving forward, because there are some fun things on the horizon for DC. Will they all be hits? Time will tell, but I think they're off to a good start with this one and off on a good foot, so we'll see where the future of DC and Superman go from here.
Yes, Superman is in theaters now. Go check it out. If you had any interest at all of checking it out, don't let the hate that's flowing through the internet persuade you. Don't even let us with our positivity persuade you. Make your own opinion is what we say. The reviewers who are paid for it, for those who are doing a podcasting and doing it in different ways, we're sharing how it feels personally to us and looking at it as a whole, but it shouldn't be the end all be all. Like, we were positive about it. We both gave it an 8.5. You may give it a 7. You may give it a 10. My oldest daughter, who went with us, gave it a 10 out of 10. She absolutely loved it because she wasn't nitpicking every little thing. Like, I nitpicked a little bit more than she did. She just went in and had fun with it. Like, if you have interest in it, go see it so you can form your opinion. If you didn't end up not liking it after you saw it for legitimate reasons and not just because it's not Henry Cavill, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it, but you got to at least go make your own opinion on that by seeing it and not spreading vitriol everywhere without ever seeing anything but a trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. I want to move us now into our review for Marvel's Ironheart. This is on Disney+, a 6-episode miniseries that, man, it felt like we were never going to get this show ever. And there was a real danger, I think, at one point of this show never seeing the light of day, which is unfortunate because this show was announced back during the pandemic in 2020, and it actually filmed in 2022. So we're getting this show 3 years after it was filmed, which is an insane amount of time to give for a character like this. And it follows the tale of Riri Williams, who got her big introduction in, Wakanda Forever. And she is this tech genius with aspirations of, bettering her life and coming out of, rougher circumstances. She suffered a little bit of a personal tragedy that we dive into in this show, and her ambition is to be better than Tony Stark. Like that's her whole ambition. She kind of lays that out really well at the beginning of the show. And then you go through, her character arc, which I know people are going to have very strong opinions of, and I've seen people have very strong opinions of it. I'm a little mixed on how this show was executed, because I think there were some elements of the show that I think worked really well, and then some of the elements of the show that really didn't work so well. And I'm excited to get in and kind of talk about it. What were your initial reactions to some of the stuff we got in the show?
I'm kind of the same. I'm a bit mixed. We've talked about it a lot that we've been waiting for so long. I think Dominique is fantastic as Riri Williams. She gets that sass and attitude and the young genius, and she plays a character really well, which can be a really interesting character. I just don't know if it really did justice to the character at all in this, because it's 6 episodes. Felt like it could be a little longer, but we didn't get a whole lot of development when it came to Riri. We're going to probably talk a bit spoilery about this. If you don't want to be spoiled on any of it, jump to our recap at the end, where we try not to do any spoilers and stuff in it. But I do want to kind of talk, because there's some twists, there's some turns, and there's some stuff that I have to be able to talk about to say, like, sure, I didn't like this or like that. Because, it starts off that she's still at MIT. She's still struggling. She's calling power outages. She's got a suit built, but it's not quite where she wants it to be. But she just causes a little too much havoc and ends up getting herself thrown out of MIT. So she has to come home to Chicago. Of course, she flies the suit back, but it doesn't always go that well. She crash lands. And as soon as she hits the ground and she goes back home to her mom, she's trying to figure out, all right, how do I get the funding, the parts? How do I get the stuff I need to be able to make my suit? Because right now, even after, Wakanda and everything that happened with her there, she's still obsessed, like, I've got to make this suit and I've got to get that suit made. And she ends up turning to kind of a life of crime. She gets approached by someone who tells her that we can help you. We can get you the funding, get you the money. And that's kind of where I feel it was actually kind of the weakest with it. Like, you've got this young girl who's kind of obsessed with making the suit, and we do get to find the reasons why. It takes a little bit too long to me to get to the exact reason why she's doing it. But when you really think by the end of this series of what they've done with her character, she really didn't get any growth. She got very little growth when it comes to dealing with her past, but as a human being, as a character, I don't think she got the growth we were kind of expecting to see. And you're still kind of left like, where exactly does she fit in with the MCU? Where is she going to show up again after that? So I would say in the end, I was a little disappointed, but I still enjoyed quite a few elements of it. But it still felt like going back to it being announced in 2020, filmed in 2022, that was kind of in the middle of the mess that Marvel was, that they weren't sure what they were doing with these characters. And it was very clear, and even James Gunn has spoken out about it, that Marvel and Disney, the head honchos, were like, we just need to crank out more. We need more. And this story felt like kind of that. Like, it was just one of those, we just need to crank it out. We're not exactly certain what we want to do with the character. We just need to crank something out for it. And that's kind of what the series felt like to me. Like, because I said, she goes to crime to pay for her suit very quickly. She doesn't really debate it that much. And she's doing it to the very end of the series. So, like, you don't see a hero almost in Riri. You see a very young girl, which I get. That's very emotional. That's very self-centered, very focused on something, but I don't think she got the growth that they think they gave us out of the character.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like, you get a very little progression with the character. Like, she's a woman who's has struggles with her decisions, right? I think in her heart, she wants to do good and she wants to do what's right, but she feels it feels like very beaten by the system kind of thing. Like, she feels like there's no opportunity for her to get to where she wants to be, right? She tries to, she had the internship at Wakanda that she went and did, and, how is that going to, lead into more opportunities for her, and her getting her ideas in front of the right people and getting the funding that she needs. And, she kind of turns into this, well, if the system's not going to help me, I have to help myself. And at the end of the day, I don't think this character is a hero necessarily, because she is and she isn't. And she kind of walks this fine line, because while her intentions are there, her decisions are very much not hero-esque at all, really, because she's doing these crimes, and like she struggles with that during the whole thing, because one of the big through lines for this show is, am I a bad person because I'm doing these not so good things? But it's kind of like a Robin Hood situation, where if I do bad things to bad people, that makes me a good person, kind of thing, where she struggles with that, because she meets up with this group led by the Hood, who is played by Anthony Ramos, who I love in just about everything he's in. He's a fantastic actor that I really like a lot. And, his group is, he has his own journey that he goes on in this as well, which I think is one of the stronger points. And he's one of the more interesting type of villains, grounded villains that they have in Marvel at the moment, which... we'll see what's going on with him, and if they have plans to advance beyond that, based on where they leave the series here. And his whole thing is, I'm attacking these people who have too much already to kind of help us out, kind of thing. It's like a very modern Robin Hood type situation, which is funny because his character's name is the Hood, but. That seems to be their whole motivation, is we're just taking money from people who already have too much and aren't really helping anyone else, kind of thing. And that makes us justified in our decisions to do so, which morally you can have that conversation. It's not really, is it really right? It kind of speaks to more of a world theme. And I think that's where it gets a little political there. And the whole, like, the rich having too much and not helping other people is a very hot topic, right? Like, it's a very, very politically charged statement here that, they try to incorporate it into the story here, and I don't know if they do as effective of a job with it. But as far as Riri as a character goes, she's, like I said, somebody that doesn't make the best decisions, and wondering if that's really meant to be heroic. Like, I think she wants to do the right thing, she just doesn't know how, maybe? I don't know. It's like, it's a weird dynamic that she, that she's experiencing throughout the, the course of this show, that she makes a decision at the very end that's very much not heroic, but we'll get to that in the end. But like, it's going to be real interesting to see where they move that character forward after this.
Yeah, the Hood I was a little mixed on. I think he acted well for it, but we do end up learning in the end, again, big spoilers and stuff, that his whole journey of who he was robbing from ended up being daddy problems and daddy issues, because his dad abandoned him at a young age, because he clearly tells him, I didn't want you anymore.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to deal with you after your mom died, and I just left you, and you need to grow up and act like that. It was a very emotional thing, but like he was doing everything for it, because he acted like, oh, this is a big family and this is all this, but he ended up pretty much being the same as his dad, which was a payoff we were supposed to get, that parallel. But nobody else of his gang, or even Riri, got to realize that who he was going after was his own father. No one got that realization but him. So there wasn't as big as a payoff to me with that story, because only he got that realization and no one else did. And it was, especially his powers. Like, I don't know the Hood as well, but it just, like, he's curving bullets when he shoots and stuff. Like, he's got magic, but everything kind of boiled down to him turning invisible and curving bullets, which just felt like you're not going as mystical, magical as you potentially could have gone with him. And like I said, not knowing the character that well, it felt a little bit like, okay, how are they really supposed to be fearing or leading, going under this guy? Like, they know he has these powers, but he takes his cape off. They've taken it before. They could have easily kind of stopped him. And that's also where it loses a little bit, is because we get to a point where Riri knows that she needs to stop him. And she needs to figure out exactly how he's getting his powers. So she comes up with this, that she needs to be able to get the cloak, or at least a piece of the cloak. And that's kind of where it lost me a little bit, because
I get that.
and I'll go back a little bit. after I go on this, but she's able to cut a piece off and she's able to take it to someone else and learn about the magic properties. But then we jump forward where she decides she needs to destroy it. So she's using that piece of cloth to figure out how to destroy. She's trying everything and she can't destroy it. Like, she cut it extremely easily with a laser, but she can't destroy it past that. Like, if it can be cut by a laser, then heat and other things can destroy it, but blowing it up, other stuff, or which she didn't try again, we'll just dice it up with a bunch of lasers and stuff. Like, it kind of lost me with that. Like, well, yeah, it's indestructible. We can't destroy the hood, even though I cut a piece off of it. Like, you kind of just like, okay, really? That's kind of what you did with that? Like, she can cut a piece off easily, but she can't destroy it.
I get what you're saying, but I think
it's nitpicky. But
I get what you're saying, but I think going back to the hood, like, I think that's what makes him more relatable. Is, you know, he was abandoned by the people that were responsible for his upbringing. Like, he lost his mother, and this goes to speak to a deeper, like, a deeper societal question, even of, like, do circumstances around your upbringing influence who you become as a person? And that's like, you know, hey, he suffered this very traumatic event, losing his mother, and then is completely abandoned by his father. And I think that makes him a little bit more relatable in, like, why he has such a vengeful, revengeful nature about him, to where he's not getting the help that he could have had his dad been around to, you know, lead that in. That's leading him to, you know, get desperate and, you know, make the deal with the devil that he makes to get his magical abilities. And, you know, I like that they kind of tiptoe around a little bit of the dark mystical arts stuff that you really have only gotten from Doctor Strange at this point. And you start dealing with more people who have, you know, ties to Kamar-Taj, because Kamar-Taj gets mentioned in here, like a little bit more magical, diving into the mystic arts.
Agatha, we've had Agatha with the dark arts and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
so you've done very little with that, but you dive a little bit more into it, and there's more people that are involved that know about it, and, you know, there's some fun stuff that they do with that by the end, but yeah, it's kind of an up and down series. Like, it has its highlights, it has its lowlights. Like, there's stuff in it that works, stuff in it that doesn't. And one thing that really frustrated me about this was apparently a decision from the studio, and maybe not even necessarily the person that made the series, was the inclusion of a character by the end that people have been clamoring for ever since WandaVision became a thing, and you started to dabble into that dark mystical arts stuff. And I'm gonna lean spoiler heavy in here, but you get the debut of Mephisto, who is somebody who has been about being called for ever since WandaVision, basically, and you throw it in a series that you don't know what the follow-up's going to be, but you introduce him here. How is that character going to play a heavy, if any, like, influence in moving forward? Because you do have a connection with Riri that they make by the end of this final episode, but you get your finale as a payoff of a character that we've been wanting to see in a story that you haven't invested that much time and effort into, because really you get 2-3 episode drops for this show, and it's done in 2 weeks, and you introduce this character that everybody's been waiting for, and you do it for a series that you don't seem to really want to throw a whole lot into, and it was kind of a little bit of a letdown for me at that point.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Mephisto being in here, because it's another thing where I can be nitpicky, because we get to see the sequence of where the Hood gets the Hood, and he makes a deal, and he just agrees to it because this guy, I mean, he's got powers of persuasion and everything else with that. But, like, he basically asked him, do you want to know the terms and what I'm asking in return for you to give? Oh, no, I'll do whatever. Let's go. And we got the same thing with Riri. Like, he's manipulating and he's using his powers to get people to do what he wants. But it's, again, that Riri agrees to make a deal with the devil without knowing what that's going to be. And that just was kind of like, I get it showing his powers and his control and about what he has, but it just felt like no one's questioning. And it lessened Riri for me, because, yeah, this whole 6-episode series, she gets kicked out of MT, she's trying to get this suit. And then we learn that a lot of where she is because her stepdad and her best friend was killed. And she ends up creating accidentally this AI that is her best friend Natalie, which I'm mixed on that, because I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to do that connection between her having her dead best friend back and the emotion, everything else. But the AI was way too emotional. She acted way too much like a real teenage girl, which, if that's what they were going for, fine. But it didn't feel like, outside of what Tony Stark has done and where, Vision is, AI in here has never, in the Marvel Universe, has not been emotional like that between Ultron and Vision and stuff. But Ultron, got all the internet, sees how everything's doing, and he's acting not exactly impulsively. You've got Natalie taking the suit and running off and causing scenes and showing up when she's told not to and shutting things down and not responding. Like, I felt they went a little too heavy on just how emotional the AI was. Like, I get you're trying to portray it like she's got her real best friend back, but it felt too emotional. And then when we finally get towards the end, like, Riri has to build a new suit to be able to take on the Hood and finish him off, and they're able to build it in the old garage using an old car. And it's like the best looking suit they've created so far, but like, where do you get the rocket engines? Where do you get the boosters? Where do you get the guns? Where, like, you're getting from a scrapyard and a car you had built when you were young. Like, it's a comic book show, but still it's trying to do a grounded, realistic story of a girl dealing with these struggles and emotions and everything else, but yet she's able to build a suit from a car and scraps that's better than anything she had built before. But that's also another complaint, is that she doesn't really use a suit that much in this show. She uses it as transportation, but as we don't get like Iron Man-esque battle sequences and fights, even like the final fight sequences with the Hood. She's barely really even using the suit. She doesn't use the guns. She barely uses the boosters. She doesn't use much of it. So the suit, even though it's core and essential to her story, it's kind of just barely used.
Yeah, that's a major complaint I had about this too. Like, you put so much emphasis on the suit, but you don't really use it and use it to its full capabilities, right? Because you want to see that. And I wonder if that's just a limitation budget-wise for the show, that maybe not have been able to make it work. Like, maybe they were stretching the limits of the effects budget at that point. And
maybe.
They just couldn't have. And there's a number of different logistical reasons why they may have not have included that for reasons like that. But you're still wanting to see it. Like, this is Ironheart. She's, a tech genius and everything like that. And it's cool to see her build the final suit like it was, even though you have to kind of turn your brain off a little bit to see how they can make it look even better than what she was working on before, which you kind of want. When you're making a new suit, you want it to be upgraded. You want it to look slicker and look cooler, which mission accomplished there. The suit looked great. I have no issues with the aesthetics of the suit at that point, but you wanted to see her really fight with the suit. And it was just more about her fighting as herself. Where did she learn this combat training, and how could she do that? They didn't really dive too much into that either, but that's neither here nor there. But you really wanted to see her fight and kick butt with the suit, and really didn't get that as much as I was hoping we would. But it plays a factor in how we have to read this story. Like, there could be a number of reasons why it didn't, but it's still something we have to take into account when we're reviewing this. But there were some highlights in it. There were some, but I think it felt overall just kind of like one note tone wise throughout the entire show, and that leaves me a little bit disappointed in what we got from it, because there was some anticipation for us, at least, around it. Like, we've been waiting to see this for 3 years now, and you kind of start like gritting your teeth when you see like it's being held out for reasons, and you wonder why, and then eventually they cave and put it out, and you get it, and you're just like, okay, I kind of see why they were toying with putting it out or not. But there were plenty of things I enjoyed about it, but I think it missed the mark a lot on it too. That I'm 50-50 on how I feel about it. You could sway me either way and make a good argument for being a pretty solid show to just being an underwhelming show at the same time. Like, I'm really on the fence with how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would say in the end I was fairly underwhelmed by it, and I really wanted to enjoy it. I liked the character. Like I said, Dominique was fantastic as Riri. I think she acted well and played the character well. She wasn't given a whole lot. Like I said, she very quickly turned to a life of crime. You finally get what's looking like the resolution, that she's realizing the wrong, that she has her family back. She should have been leaning on her family and friends more instead of pushing behind. As we learn, she's so obsessed over the suit because she feels like she has to protect her mom. She has to protect those that she loves, and the only way she can do that is by creating this suit like Iron Man to be able to protect them. But in the end, she didn't really even use the suit to protect them. Right. She did her own, which I guess maybe that's supposed to be part of her growth. But she ends up making that deal with Mephisto at the very end, which kind of negates any potential growth you were giving her, because she gave it all up to have her best friend back, which again, like the best friend was annoying to me. I'll just straight up like it. And it was mainly because it's supposed to be an AI that's being too emotional. And then we finally get that at the end. It just felt like she was still just too focused on herself and what she wanted. Yeah, she's a young girl. She can have that, but it didn't feel like there was a payoff that really worked. And I did, like I said, wanted to jump back a little bit because we've left out one character that plays an importance to the story, which I was also kind of hit or miss on, and that was this black market dealer who Riri turns to while she's doing the crimes that she needs help with her suits. And this turns out to be the son of Obadiah from the first Iron Man, which we're getting, all right, he's going to kind of be his dad was a villain, so he's going to be a hero in here. And like, well, yes and no, because they turn him very quickly. He helps Riri. He's very hesitant about helping her because we get one of the jobs is they're going into this very high-tech greenhouse area that's an island that there can be no metal or anything else. And he created this like synthetic mesh skin that she uses to try to hide a laser, but he's very like, hey, don't let this fall into bad hands. They'll trace it back to me. They'll know all that. And of course that happens. We also get Riri basically allowing someone to die, which also questions her character. She could have helped. She could have brought him out, even though it would have caused more conflict, but she allowed a person to die. But the whole thing that set off after that, because they do find that fake skin in her laser, because she waited to, instead of doing it at the headquarters when he's walking around or anywhere else, she needs to cut off a piece of this cape in the most highly technological blocking place that she could possibly try to cut a piece off with, is that the very next day they had traced it to him. Like, this is a guy who deals with the black market, who's been hiding out because everyone knows who his dad is. He's been hiding for so long that a piece of skin somehow instantly could be traced back to him. He would not have anything, even if it's something he's playing around with. He would not have his name, especially it's under a fake name, because it's like they find it the very next day he's arrested. Well, they also know exactly who he is, and they're showing that he's Obadiah's son and that they're throwing him in jail and they're tying him. Like, it was just way too convenient. Like, he would not have had anything in a piece of skin. Like, did he write his name on it? Like, you write your name in the underwear or something? Like, there would not have been anything that he could have possibly put into that fake skin that would have tied him to it. Because, yeah, like, and it would have taken longer than a day. Like, if it was something where he had code inside of the skin and there's technology in it and they could trace a source or something back to it, as we do with fake tech and stuff. It was the next morning that he got arrested. So overnight they found the scan, figured out it was him, went to his safe house and arrested him and stuff. Like, it had too much stuff that felt like we're just doing stuff out of convenience. It doesn't make logical sense. We're just going to do it anyways. And that's kind of where, like you said, or like I said, Riri is focused on getting what she wants. So she becomes a criminal. She lets someone die. She lets someone get arrested. Yeah. And then she makes a deal with the devil. Like, her growth is actually turning her more into a villain than a hero.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole point that I was making earlier. It's like you expect this personal growth, but her choices are way more on the villain side than they are a hero, and you kind of wonder what line she's going to walk and where she's going to wind up if they, explore this character further, which seems like they could, and we don't know where they're going to be integrated. And I know we keep talking about like Young Avengers and other things like that. Does she eventually show up in, Doomsday or Secret Wars in a spot that you don't know, or is she going to be explored more in Marvel television than anything, because we do know, like, moving forward, it's going to be less television and it's going to be a little bit more movie focused. And what does the future slate look like beyond? We've got this 2-year window now where we're getting Secret Wars. Well, we're getting Doomsday and then Secret Wars, and you kind of know the direction they're going to lean with their storytelling coming out of that based on what you hear with, Mutants and Fantastic Four focus and, some of that stuff that you're hearing rumblings about. What is it, the involvement of this character? Is it just going to be something that's not really followed up on? And it's unfortunate because there is some potential for some interesting story there if you get the opportunity to flesh it out a little bit more beyond a 6-episode mini arc, or is it just meant to be something that you never follow up on again?
Yeah, and that brought up a point too of like they set up potentially like the Strange Academy that they could do that, because we got that a young character that could be setting up a Strange Academy series and stuff. But that's also another nitpick I have with this show, is because at the very end you get like a bonus scene that the Hood wasn't defeated. He was kind of let go, but he doesn't have his hood anymore. But he shows up at this crystal shop to that young girl who instantly is going to take him into the other realm and help him, even though she helped Riri, knows that someone had this mystical hood that was very dangerous, and she just dealt with some very dangerous things, gave Riri magic to be able to power the suit and all this, and she instantly helps a guy that she should know
doesn't question
that she shouldn't. She didn't question anything. She instantly goes to help him. Like, it just felt like this story felt like, from Marvel's perspective, they didn't really care about it. So it just kind of was slapped together, is how it feels like in the end. It was kind of slapped together. Like, there's some good elements of it, but the core of the story, like, characters just made decisions that just didn't make a whole lot of sense. They didn't really grow. They didn't really learn from anything. They didn't really move themselves forward. It was 1 step forward and 2 steps back with just about everything in the series. And I really wanted to like it. I liked the character. I liked her appearance in Wakanda Forever. I like the actress. Like I said, I think she did a fair job with what she was given, but what she was given just wasn't very good.
Yeah, it didn't work to move her in a direction that is all that appealing. Like, okay, I think what they were trying to go is the hero kind of becomes a villain but gets a redemption, but then doesn't get a redemption. Like, it was too, like, wavy, you know what I mean, rather than like a linear story that they were trying to tell, which is kind of what you want here on a redemption arc, or at least like, hey, you start off here, then you hit like this low and you do something, but then you have that, I'm ready to become the hero I want to be, and she's still, like, very much struggling with that. And there's some possible intrigue with that. You can make an argument for that, but we don't know how it's going to follow up, because, like you said, the way this is presented, like, it feels so slapped together that you don't know if they're going to follow up on it. Because how many times have you seen some of these shows get one season and is left on a cliffhanger that you don't really know if they're going to follow up on? I'm personally waiting for a second season of Moon Knight to be announced, because there's a lot of meat on the bone that was left on that, and they have not followed up on it since. Like, you don't know what the creative direction is going to look like, because it feels like it changes every 6 months to a year on what they're going to be doing moving forward. So, like, we just don't know. In the end, is it going to be consequential? The jury's still out. Is it something they're going to follow up on? Do they expect us to be invested in this character and care? Or is it one that, okay, we did this, but it's really an excuse to get Mephisto out there, and we might use Mephisto again. Mm-hmm. And we don't know how we're going to use Riri necessarily. Is she just going to be back to a side character, which would be unfortunate because there is potential there, but I don't know. We don't know what direction they're going.
As you mentioned, we feel like it could potentially be setting up Riri to be part of the Young Avengers, which makes sense, but where she's at with her story right now, it doesn't make sense for her to be a Young Avenger. We didn't get any bonus scenes that might set that up, because we did get that with at least one, with Kamala showing up to she showed up once to try to recruit, or twice. There's been a couple that have been recruited for the Young Avengers so far. Kate Bishop has been recruited, and I thought she showed up one more time, but that's another one. Like, we're waiting for Kamala to show up again. We're waiting, she was in the Marvels, which, say what you want about the film and how it did that. It did feel like this came from that time of Marvel just not knowing what they're doing, because they're stretching themselves out too far. It's not a bad show. It just has a lot of issues of, like, why did they do this? Why So when we're left at this, it felt like these 6 episodes were the beginning, and we still had 4 to 6 more to go.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like there's still more that needs to be seen from her in this series instead of this being the end, and we don't know where she comes back from this, because, we've already had it was supposed to be before Agatha. Now it's after Agatha. It's a lot of stuff that it was supposed to be before. So back then it was setting up some stuff. But now all that stuff is come and gone, and what we have going forward with the Fantastic Four and Doomsday and Secret Wars is kind of closing out the magic and the mystical and all that as we head into the mutant saga after Secret Wars. So what she has, the window's kind of closing on exactly what they want to do if they're sticking with the magic and the mystical and bringing Mephisto in at this point. Again, it's been 3 years since they filmed it. There was probably a lot of plans that was going on with Mephisto and everything after that. I'm sure it was probably a plan of Agatha to have Mephisto as part of that, because that's where everyone thought it was going to show up. But it's one of those where, because it took so long for them to make and they didn't know if they wanted to release it, that now that we've got it in 2025, it feels like, all right, well, where does this character fit in from now? Like, is she going to show up in Black Panther 3 that we know is happening? Does she show up in the Young Avengers? But there's a core part of her story where they left her that has to happen before she can go and be a Young Avenger, because she's still kind of an anti-hero. She's kind of a villain in a way, because she made a deal with the devil. She was a criminal. She didn't really deal... They try to play it up that she was dealing with the bad mistakes, that she's only doing it out of necessity, but she never really dealt with the true fact that she was a criminal. She was breaking the law with her suit and with what she was doing. Several people died because of what they were doing, and she kind of didn't have much of a reaction to it. So she's doing it because her best friend and her stepdad died. Was you just allowed at least 3 to 4 other people die. You had Ezekiel get turned into this bionic warrior, which again was like, okay, they break him out of jail and he instantly just builds something and becomes this bionic guy that then can be controlled by magic afterwards. Like, it lost itself in the end. It got a bit messy.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a valid criticism to make of the show, but I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm so on the fence with how I feel about it, because there are questions that I don't mind. If we know a follow-up is coming, I don't mind leaving it on well, what can we face out of this? There's just so much uncertainty around it that I think it has to, at this point, kind of negatively impact how I feel about it, only because we don't know what the follow-up, if any, there's going to be. So it's like, does this story really matter long-term for anything else? Because it's leaving some intrigue on where this person as a character could go, but if they don't plan on following up on it, what's the point?
Yeah, so Ironheart, the 6-episode mini-series that's been called, it was more of a miss than a hit to me. It had some good parts. Again, I think Dominique Thorne was great as Riri. It had a good supporting cast around her and stuff with it, but I just feel like it missed the mark really badly with its story. Like, it mixed in magic, it mixed in drama about losing people and losing yourself and trying to find yourself again. But I think in the end, her story arc we didn't get a payoff. We actually got her going more in a downward spiral than bringing herself up. And with the knowledge of not knowing where she could pop up again, it leaves you like, okay, what were they really trying to do with this? So fortunately, I'm going to give this like a 6.5. I think it had more misses than it did hits. There's a lot of annoyances. Stuff with the story just felt like convenient that we'll do this, and it didn't really make much logical sense. Like, I thought it was well shot. Dominique was good. Her mom was good. You had some of the supporting cast was good in it, but the story just didn't gel as well as you would hoped, and it was a disappointment for me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm giving it a 6 myself, just because there were so many missteps along the way for this. Like, you really wanted to see them. It felt very disjointed. Like, it really felt disjointed the entire series. Like, you feel that it was written, like you said, around a time where Marvel was struggling more creatively than maybe they are now, but there was a really hard struggle there, and you kind of wonder where this would have fit in had it been released in a time frame that they were wanting to release it in before, because a lot of stuff was getting jumbled in. You just like, how does this really fit into anything that we're doing now and where we're going? So at the end, you kind of have to question what the point of some of these, some of this story is and where it's going to impact her going forward. Because you see, we don't know if she's showing up in Black Panther 3. We don't know if she's going to be involved in any Avengers stuff or if anything else they're doing, because we don't know what the future of not only Marvel film, but Marvel television as well, like what direction they're going in. Like, there's so much that we just don't know, but at the core of its story is a girl who struggles with doing the right thing, and I like the premise of the story. I just think the execution was underwhelming on what they were trying to do with it, because she does have this struggle of dealing with trauma and not dealing with trauma, but still trying to meet this goal you have, but doing very villainish things to do it and not really following up on reconciling with that and dealing with it like they try, but I don't think it was executed as well as they wanted it to. And for that, I really have to drag it down, because like the promise was there, and that's where I think the most disappointment I have with it is from, because the premise is really good. Like, I really like the potential of that story, and had they executed it better, I could have liked the series more. And just not knowing where we're going in the future really inhibits my want or desire to go back and dive into it again. And that really automatically drags something in a ranking down for me, is if my ability to want to follow up on it is not that high for this. Like, I feel like it's one of those, I've seen it, I can put it in the vault and maybe don't have to reference it again. And that's unfortunate, because I really think the potential was there for something really, really solid. And I think they just swung and missed on the execution, and we don't know what the follow-up, if any, is going to be. So at that point, it's like, well, do we really need to talk about it outside of today? Like, I don't know. And that really sucks, because I really wanted to like this. I really wanted to do well. There are characters that did do well with the limited things they were given to do, but the overall total story was an overall miss for me, because I don't feel like it's moving in a direction that we can address without knowing what's coming next.
And yeah, I agree. And like, in the end, we got more dynamic out of the Hood story than we got out of Riri. And it's called Ironheart.
Yeah.
And we got more out of the Hood because he got kind of a full thing. And then we left him in a spot that we don't know where he's going. But then that also added more like, okay, she's just going to help him instantly because he knows you do magic. Like, it just had so many missteps. I wanted to like it. I was really looking forward to it. I like the character. I like the actress behind it. They could have done something I enjoyed doing to dramatic, and that's where there's this polarizing between Superman and between Ironheart here, and doing them both in the same episode, because you got the bright and colorful, and you have the dark and gritty and more serious with Ironheart, and it could have been really good. It just missed so many steps with the story where it just didn't feel like... It felt like we needed 4 to 6 more episodes to finish out the season, to run through the Mephisto stuff and leave her in a better place, because it's one of the very few Marvel properties here now that we kind of left off with our hero not quite being a hero.
Yeah.
Like, we left her in a place like, okay, well, are you trying to paint her... They kind of left her in the middle, because it's like, are they trying to paint her as she's going to be a problem or a villain? Are we putting her as an anti-hero that will always just run in the middle? Or are we leaving her off as a hero? Because you didn't leave her as a hero. You left her in the middle of, she's still making bad decisions, and she didn't really learn anything from what she went through here.
I would be a little more forgiving if we knew what the follow-up was going to be. Like, hey, this is 6 episodes. We're coming back with another 4 to 6 episode, like you said, second season, where we flesh that out and we get her, struggle with making this deal with Mephisto and knowing that she's going on a darker path to get what she needs, but she still wants to do the right thing. And how does she reconcile that now that she's made a deal with the devil? Like, if we knew there was a follow-up coming, I'd probably be a little bit more forgiving, but we just don't know. And that hurts, and that sucks, because, like, I like a guy who likes completing stories. Like, give me a story wrapped up nicely in a bow, and I'm good with it. But there's just so much hanging out there that we don't know what, or if any, conclusion we're going to get for it. Like, she's a character that's stuck in kind of a purgatory, and it's unfortunate, because I really want to see her do well. And like you said, I like the actress as well. I like the character. I just really wish they didn't leave it in that purgatory of we don't know where we're going, and that's unfortunate because it's something that I'm not sure they're going to follow up on, but we just don't know, and that really hurts it for me, and I hate to say that because we like to have a more positive outlook on things, but yeah, the misses on it and not knowing where they're going to follow up just really knocks it down quite a bit for me. It's just how I'm feeling about it coming out of it.
It's something they could have capitalized too. In game, we lost Iron Man, so you're having those struggles of people, and you've got a girl that through the comics and everything else has mattered, and she's an Iron Man adjacent character, very much Iron Man like. You could have brought her in to kind of bridge that gap. Well, we lost Iron Man, now we got Ironheart. We got this young girl who's going to step in. She can be different, but it's that we just kind of from 5 years of between it was announced to when it came out, we got these 6 episodes that just left us wanting more, but not in a good way. But in a way like we feel like you didn't finish the story you were trying to tell. You left in a spot that just like, okay, is it going to be another 5 years and past Secret Wars before we see a conclusion with how long it took to get this out? Like, it does feel like this is part 1, and we really don't know or think we're ever going to get the part 2 to it to finish off the story. It just feels like an incomplete story, which is unfortunate. Like it's got good elements to it, but it just failed its execution. It was a disappointment to me. Like, I enjoyed bits and pieces, and I enjoyed some episodes more than others, but it kind of lost its way, especially because it tried to introduce magic and Mephisto and everything else, and it just didn't feel like any of those were a big payoff because the characters they introduced here, you got Sacha Baron Cohen being Mephisto, and we did get, if you looked at that spoon when he was stirring his tea talking to Riri, you got to see the red Mephisto but this is the 3rd time we've had Mephisto, because we had him in the Ghost Rider, Nick Cage Ghost Rider movies, not MCU, but we had him. We have yet to have him as the Red Demon, too. Like, we had him in human form. So it was they could have ended up showing him past the spoon in the demon form, but we got yet a 3rd introduction of Mephisto in live action as a human. And that was kind of, that's nitpicky. But it's like you've got a character that a lot of people like and know, but you're still just giving us a human form.
Yeah, and I agree with the notion of it being incomplete, because at the end, that's kind of what it feels like to me. And, I want to say, like we said with our Superman review, I want to reiterate here for people, don't let us having kind of a negative impact of watching this impact your ability to watch it and form your own opinion. Please go check it out. Every one of these episodes is roughly 42 minutes to an hour for airtime. Like, you can get through the 6 episodes very quickly if you wanted to. Go check it out and watch it. If you think we're missing the mark and we're not connecting the dots somewhere, please come tell us. Come to our YouTube comments. Come to our TikTok comments. You love to yell at us at TikTok. Come yell at us there. Like let's have a conversation about it and let us know what you think if we're missing the mark. Please go form an opinion yourself. If you're interested in this story and this character, go check it out and let us know. Did we miss something? Are we not seeing a bigger picture here? Because, we're just kind of taking it and forming our own opinions on it too. We're not expert storytellers by any means. If we were, we would be writing scripts ourselves too. We're just kind of taking this content as it comes and giving our genuine reactions to it. But yeah, go see it and form your own opinion for sure.
Yeah, and you could love it, and if you loved it, that's great. Glad that you were able to find something out of it. It was just, we were looking forward to it so much and taking so long to finally get it, and this is what we got, feeling like we got an incomplete story is what we're messing with. If there was another 4 to 6 that really wrapped this up well, we'd probably feel a lot better about it, that it could add a weaker front end, but a better back end, but we may never see that back end. So yeah, check it out. And again, with Ironheart here, it's free. It's on Disney Plus. You can stream all 6 episodes right now and form your own opinion on it. We were unfortunately disappointed by it, and it's one, like you said, I don't know if I would ever return to it, even though I like the character and I like the actress who plays Riri. It's just like, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth because they didn't give us a good, complete story.
I will say, though, if they do plan on following up on this and we get a 2nd season, I'll probably give it another go and give it another opportunity to watch if we know there's a follow-up coming, because there's so much we don't know about the future of that character right now. That's why it feels so incomplete and kind of lackluster for me, because we don't think there's going to be a payoff to the story. And you're just like, well, she didn't really grow. Like, why did we just go through 6 episodes of this to not know what the future is going to be. So, maybe we're missing something. Maybe they've come out and said something that we didn't catch. But as far as I know, there aren't any concrete plans to follow up with this character right now. And, that's unfortunate that they left it where they left it. And we don't know if we're going to see that character or that story go any further than that. And that's why I have to knock it as much as I did. But man, if they want to follow up and make right for it, I'm all for it. I want to see them kind of pull the nose up on it a little bit, but it just left so much to be desired that I had to kind of knock it like we did, and that's unfortunate.
And we also know that Ryan Coogler had a hand in developing and bringing it together, and he is, go look at our review for Sinners and how much we praise and loved his storytelling in that, and I've enjoyed both Black Panthers, and some people are a little lesser on the second Black Panther, but that was such a difficult situation where you have an actor pass away in real life and you're trying to do a follow-up to the film while dealing with an actual death and all that. And I think they did as tough. And plus you also have Marvel saying, well, we need to use these characters and we need to do this. You're not fully in control of these stories that you're telling in the Marvel universe because they have such a connected universe, and they're trying to bring it back now, not 3 years ago when it was filmed, of okay, we need to have a connected universe, but you don't have to have watched this show or this movie to understand what's going on in this. This one, not as much. It's helpful to know what happens in Wakanda Forever, but it just kind of disappointing to know that it had his involvement some. We don't know how much he was able to help or do with it. It just felt incomplete, and that's the biggest thing I can say about it. It just felt like the elements are there, but it just felt so incomplete. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for listening to us ramble about Superman and Ironheart for as long as we did. Most of the time when we do episodes like this, it's a little shorter. We ran a little longer with what we were talking about it, but we are kind of passionate about comic books and the stories and how good they can be in there. But we also want to bring genuine reactions and conversations about this stuff. But sure. Coming up next week, we will be looking at the I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot to see if that's going to be entertaining at all or if it's another cash-in of trying to bring something back after so long. And we'll also be taking a look at The Bear Season 4. Was this a solid follow-up to Season 3 that kind of felt like it ended abruptly? Or was this kind of Season 3B instead of a Season 4? But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.